Hey everyone, the Euro Yard is here, and today what we are going to do, we put some effort into this, we're going to take you through the detailed results of the grand final of the 2025 Eurovision Song Contest. Of course, that was won by Austria, and you may notice there are a lot of flags behind me. None of them are an Austrian flag. I would have featured one more prominently if I had one. I promise you we will correct that at some point. Anyway, this is going to be a very numbers-heavy video. There's going to be a lot of graphics, a lot of numbers, so we're going to try to help you understand it all, what you're looking at, and how we came upon Austria winning the contest. So let's get right into it. Here's the top 10 of the grand final. As you can see, Austria winning the contest with 436 points. Second place was Israel, 357. Estonia on 356 in third place, so just 1 point separating them. Then you drop back to fourth place. That's Sweden at 321. Italy was in the top 5 at 256. Then sixth place was Greece, 231. France was at 230 in seventh place. In eighth place was Albania, their best result since 2012. That was 218. They, I guess, technically tied with Ukraine, who were also at 218. The EBU has a tiebreaker system, so they technically see Ukraine as having been in ninth, even though they tied. We're giving Ukraine the benefit of the doubt here. 218, and then rounding out the top 10 was Switzerland, 214 points. But now what we're going to do is we have all those scores up in the bars here. But now we're going to change the colors a little bit to show you the split between the jury vote and the televote. So as you can see, we've just changed the colors here. Austria, most of their vote was in the jury, 258 versus 178. Israel, the vast majority of theirs was in the televote. With Estonia, again, it was televote heavy, but not quite as heavily a proportion. Sweden was a little more even, but it was tilted towards the televote. Italy was tilted towards the juries. Greece was mostly an even split between televote and juries. France was very jury heavy. Albania was actually very televote heavy. And the same goes for Ukraine. And then, of course, you have Switzerland, which was literally all juries. Quite a shock when it was revealed that they got no points. Now we move down to the middle 10, 11th through 20th place. Finland, maybe a little surprising seeing them there at 11th place, 196. The Netherlands, 175. Latvia, 158. Poland, 156. Germany in 15th at 151. Lithuania at 96. So a big drop from Germany to Lithuania into the double digits. Then 17th was Malta at 91. Norway was at 89. The UK was at 88. And then in 20th place was Armenia at 72. Here's the split here. Finland was kind of balanced a little more heavily on the televote. The Netherlands was jury heavy. Latvia was jury heavy. Poland was very, very televote heavy. Actually got one of the best televotes. We'll get into that in a second. Germany was about one of the most even splits you're going to see between jury and televote. Lithuania was a little more tilted towards the televote. Malta, this one is very, very surprising. I think we all thought Malta was going to be more of a televote song, but as it turned out, it was very much a jury song. I still can't really figure that one out. Norway was tilted towards the televote. The UK, just like Switzerland, was all juries because they zeroed out in the televote. And then Armenia was fairly even, but a little more tilted actually towards the juries again. So another kind of surprising result. And then we look at the bottom 6, Portugal at 50 points. And then into the bottom 5, Luxembourg at 47, Denmark at 47. Again, the EBU has their tiebreakers, so they consider Denmark in 23rd. Spain was at 37, so they were the lowest Big 5 country. Iceland was second to last at 33. And then 27 for San Marino, but you know, we've seen in recent years last place songs getting 0 points, getting a single digit number. This is actually the best in years that a last place song is done. So nobody, not only did nobody get 0 points, nobody actually even came close to getting 0. So all things considered, everybody at least got something to take home with them out of this grand final. And now we'll put up the splits here. Portugal was more of a jury song. Luxembourg was a pretty even split. Denmark was actually very much a jury song. And, of course, we know Sissel made some jokes about her televote after that. I love her. Spain was a little bit more tilted towards the juries. Iceland was literally all televote. They were the only country to zero out in the juries. And then San Marino, a little more televote, but there were so few points. So, we just talked about the jury vote. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put all 26 countries on the board and show you how they did in the jury vote. So, as we know, Austria won the Eurovision Song Contest. Austria won the jury vote. They did what Switzerland did in 2024. And they did what Sweden did in 2023. The jury winner going on to win the contest. So 3 years in a row that's happened. So Austria, number one in the jury vote. Switzerland was second. France, Italy, and the Netherlands were the top 5 in the juries this year. Then you see Sweden there at 6th, 126. This was definitely a little interesting. I think, generally speaking, people were expecting Sweden to go into this contest maybe as having a little of what I'll call cross appeal between the televote and the juries. But as the votes started coming in, you saw Sweden wasn't getting the points that you were expecting. They got 126, which is still respectable, but still less than half of what Austria did. I think they were expecting to do a little bit better with the juries, and I think that's when we realized that underperformance with the juries and perhaps they weren't going to win. But if you want to speak about an overperformance, it's the country right below them, Latvia, 116 points with juries. It's probably been a long time since Latvia has done that well in the jury segment. But yeah, they had a pretty good performance, and so did Greece in 8th place with 105. Claudia had excellent vocals in her performance. Rounding out the top 10, Estonia and the UK. Now, the UK I can get because they had such great vocals. Estonia is interesting to me because I think we all just kind of believe that this song was televote bait and that 90% of their votes, or their points I should say, were going to come from the televote. But that is not what happened. They got almost 100 jury points, which, I mean, look, we put our rubrics together based off of the things that the EBU tells their juries to look at, which is overall impression of the performance, the vocals, the composition, and the staging, especially the vocals. Songs like this don't usually do well with juries. So the fact that Estonia made it into the top 10 it's genuinely perplexing to me. I mean, good for Tommy Cash, but I don't get it. So actually tying the UK at 88 points was Finland, another song that I think maybe underperformed a little bit with the juries. Malta, very, very surprising, 83 for a lot of the same reasons as Estonia, to be honest. But then Germany on the left side of the board with the juries at 77. Then moving over to the right side of the board, Ukraine and Israel both had 60. Albania had 45. I was maybe hoping for a little more there. Denmark had 45. Armenia had 42 jury points. Portugal and Lithuania rounded out the top 20. Then Spain had 27. And now in the bottom 5 in jury points was Luxembourg, Norway, Poland, San Marino, and Iceland was the only goose egg. As for the televote, it was a completely different set of results. Just like what happened last year, Israel did very well in the televote, but Israel actually came second in the televote last year. However, this year they came in first, even though they got fewer points than they did in 2024. That was 297 this year. Estonia came in second at 258. They only finished 1 point behind Israel overall. Sweden came in third in the televote with 195. Then rounding out the top 5 were winning Austria. And then Albania got into the top 5 in the televote with 173 points. They came in front of Ukraine, who, of course, the last few years have been doing very well in the televote. Ukraine had 158. Poland was 7th in the televote, 139. Greece also doing very well, 126. And then Finland and Italy rounded out the top 10 in the televote. And then finishing up the left side of the board there, Germany, Norway, and Lithuania all 13th place and above in the televote. But now over to the right side of the board, you have France and the Netherlands rounding out the top 15. I guess Latvia technically, but the EBU would say they were 16th. Then Iceland, Armenia, Luxembourg, and San Marino rounding out the top 20. In the televote, Portugal was 21st. And then the bottom 5 in the televote were Spain, Malta, Malta is extremely surprising to me. Denmark, the UK, and Switzerland, of course, the UK and Switzerland, getting top 10 in the juries and getting 0 televotes. So that's just going to be another one of those things that people talk about with how sometimes the juries and the televote are just completely on opposite ends, and maybe who the televoters want, the juries don't, who the juries want, the televoters don't. There's a diametric opposition there that will never be solved. It's a rift that will never be healed. Who knows? So the next component of this exercise is we're going to walk you through each country as they appeared in the running order of the contest, show you their points, and then put on the sidebars here how they did in both jury and public, as in where their votes all came from. So we're going to start with Norway. They led off the show. 22 jury points, 67 public points, so they came in 18th with 89. The jury votes, not very impressive. Their highest point totals were Czechia and Iceland, each giving them 6. The public of Ukraine gave them 10. Iceland gave them 8. So actually, Norway got 14 points from Iceland. That's pretty good. And then you see a lot of lower numbers there in the public vote. A lot of 4s, some 3s. So, they did okay, but they did about how I was expecting them to do. Second in the running order was Luxembourg. Luxembourg getting 47 points. Second in the contest. Historically, a very, very difficult position to go in. Of course, you had Kyle a moment ago. The first song in the contest to go hasn't won, I believe it was since Sweden in 1984, Diggy Loo, Diggy Lay. So 41 years and counting now since the first song. And the second song, the second slot is considered more of like a death slot. We've seen it time and time again. So unfortunately for Laura, not to be. The Netherlands jury gave her 6 points. That was her high water mark there. Whereas the public in Albania and Montenegro really liked this song. They gave it 8 points, so they had it in third place. She got 47 points, came in 22nd, so just on the top fringe of the bottom 5, unfortunately for her, because I really liked this song. But then when we put up the third song, you can see why it might have been a difficult spot in the running order for her, because Estonia, the country that came in third, they were next up. They got 356 points, and you can see the jury versus public split there. They did better with the juries than I would have thought going into this. They didn't get any deuce point, but they did get a couple of 10s from Belgium and Italy. And then you got 4 countries that gave them 7 points. So actually a fair number of juries gave them points on some level. A lot of them are lower numbers, 4, 3, a 2 and a 1, but then you go over to the public side, and we kind of had to compress the font a little bit to get them all in there. As you see, a number of deuce points from the public. We count 5. They got some 10s. They got a lot of 8s and a lot of 7s. So yeah, they did very, very well with the public. So there were 37 possible countries or entities that could have given Estonia points in the televote, and they got points from 36. So they did extremely well in the televote and got something out of literally almost everywhere. And then following that, number 4 was Israel. They finished a point ahead of Estonia, but came in second overall. Azerbaijan was the only jury to give them a deuce point. But generally speaking, another light year with the juries. They came in 15th. But then, again, you move over to the public side. They actually won the televote, but also got the most deuce points. They got 13. But they also got a number of 10s, couple 8s, and a bunch of 7s. Fifth in the running order was Lithuania. They got 96 points. As you can see, not a lot of countries giving them points. Not a real big surprise that Latvia was their biggest benefactor here. They gave them 17 points total. 7 from the jury, 10 from the public. Ukraine was the only country in the televote to give them a deuce point. And then maybe a little bit of a disappointing result for me personally, because I like Melody, but she was 6th in the running order. She came in 24th in the contest. The juries, gave her a little bit more credit. Albania gave her 10 points, and then, it goes down the list from there. There weren't too many. In terms of the public vote, Portugal, neighboring country, gave them 6 points. Not too surprising. Actually, the song was kind of popular with the rest of the world because it came in 8th place with them. But then Ireland was the only other country to give them any televotes. Seventh in the running order was Ukraine. Now, as you can see, Ukraine did not get any deuce points from any national juries. They didn't even get any tens. They got a couple of eights, but it was mostly low numbers from the juries that they got points from. But then again, you move to the public side, and the televote was much more forgiving of Ukraine. They got a couple of deuce points in there, a couple of tens, lots of sixes, lots of fours. So they weren't a lot of countries' favorite song, but they were kind of up there. And, sometimes just the way the numbers break, even though you came in 14th in the juries, you can still sneak up into the top 10, kind of like what Israel did a few moments ago. The United Kingdom was 8th in the running order, and this is going to be very easy because there's nothing on the public side. It's all on the jury side. Italy gave them their only deuce point from the jury. Otherwise, they did rack up some points. 88 points is not necessarily a small amount. I think there were some people, perhaps in the British Eurovision fan base, who were not particularly high on this song and didn't have high hopes. And they did come in 19th. And they did zero out in the televote. So I guess in that respect, perhaps what they were thinking was justified. But they did get some jury support. They did finish in the top 10 in the jury. So there was something to it. And their vocals, I think, were deserving of that. But unfortunately, the public side is blank. But then the song that came after the United Kingdom, of course, did very well. This was the song that won the contest. Austria, 436 points in the win. They did quite well with the juries. They won the jury segment, got a bunch of deuce points, got a bunch of tens, bunch of eights. But then even as you go down the list, sevens and sixes are getting pretty far down the list there. So with the juries that they scored points with, they were very, very high in the top 5 for a lot of juries. But then over to the public. Very interestingly, Austria didn't get any deuce points from any televotes. So that means out of the 37 entities that could have cast televotes for Austria, they didn't finish first in any of them. They did get a number of tens, and they were up there with a bunch of countries, because you can see there's a lot of countries on the list there. But they weren't any country's favorite song. Very interesting. But they won anyway. They'll take it. Number 10 in the running order. Tough spot here for Iceland, going after the song that won the contest. As you can see, the jury votes very, very lonely over there because there are none. Then the public vote, yeah, they did pretty well. They did well where you would expect. There's a lot of Scandinavian countries in there, like Denmark gave them 10 points, Finland 6, and then Sweden and Norway also gave them points. But other than that, not a whole lot going on there. They did 17th with the public. They were the only country to get 0 points out of the jury segment. But they were able to salvage 33 points, which was good for 25th. Latvia, perhaps a very surprising song, out of number 11 in the running order. They did actually fairly well with the juries. They got 3 deuce point from Denmark, Lithuania, and the United Kingdom. And then they did get some jury points from a variety of other countries that perhaps that they don't have cultural ties to. So I think that really speaks to how well the song did, how good the vocals were. But then you go to the public, perhaps a little bit more disappointing. Lithuania, neighboring country, gave them deuce point, but everybody else, for the most part, where they got points, they were pretty low scores. 3s, 2s, and 1s mostly. 12th in the running order was the Netherlands. Now, they came in 12th in this contest. Now, 175 points is really nothing to shake a stick at. 12th place, maybe a little bit disappointing for them. This was a song that had been in the top 5 in the odds the week of the contest, so 12th place, definitely not where they were hoping to be. Now, coming out of the jury segment, they were probably feeling pretty good because they came in 5th in the juries with 133 points. And as you can see, there were a lot of jury points on there. A lot of countries gave them points. But again, no deuce point there. There were a bunch of 10s, a bunch of 8s, some 7s, but no deuce point. Now, if they had turned some of those 10s into 12s, it wouldn't really have mattered except for their placement because they wouldn't have won anyway. And the reason they wouldn't have won anyway is because of what happened over here. The Dutch song just didn't really seem to land with the public. Not only did it not get any deuce points, it didn't really even come close. The highest score they got from any country in the televote was 6. But you see a lot of 3, 2, 1. So didn't really hit with the televote. They came in 15th, and that's really what held the song back. And then if you want to talk about songs that I personally see as a disappointment, Finland coming in 11th with 196. I thought for sure that this song was heading for the top 10, but didn't do as well with the juries as I was hoping, despite the fact that I thought it was really one of the most polished performances in the entire contest. It was one of the most Eurovision ready for sure. They did get a deuce point out of Austria, winning Austria. They didn't get a lot of points from other countries. The points they did get, they were kind of decent. They got a lot of top 5 finishes with the juries, as you can see over there. But really where I think they could have stood to do better was with the public here. They did come in 9th in the televote, but you see they didn't get any deuce points from the public at all. They got a couple of 10s. But then it's just like a lot of mid-range scores. Yeah, a little bit disappointing, but you know what? I still love you, Erica. I still hope you go on tour in the United States, please. Following up, Finland at number 14 in the running order was Italy. This song, I think, actually maybe did a little bit better than I was expecting. They got 256 points. They came in 5th. They were never really in the top 10 in the odds in the contest going into this thing. But as you can see, the juries actually liked it quite a bit. They got 6 deuce points with the jury: Croatia, Georgia, Portugal, San Marino, not really a surprise, Slovenia, and Switzerland. But then, just racking up a number of other points to get to 159, which was good for 4th place in the jury segment. And then the televote, I wasn't expecting it to do great in the televote. It actually held its own. It came in 10th in the televote. They got 1 deuce point from neighboring Slovenia, so Slovenia gave them the max contribution of 24 points, but other than that, it was just a smattering of points here and there. And they got some high ones in there. They got some 10s, some 8s, some 7s, but yeah, a decent outcome for Italy here. Now, Poland was interesting because I think there were people out there who liked the Polish song. I just don't think they really knew how Justyna Steczkowska was going to do. 30 years later in her Eurovision return, well, we have the answer. She came in 14th, but this was a very imbalanced split between jury and televote. The juries didn't really think too terribly highly of Justyna's song. Australia was the highest jury vote that she got. She got 5 points, but otherwise from the handful of juries, she only got points from 7 juries. They were pretty low scores there. But then you go to the televote. She came in 7th in the televote with 139 points. When they announced that 139, I was like, wow, that's a pretty big televote. And she did get a couple of deuce points there. Ireland and Iceland gave her deuce point. She got some 10s, some 8s, some 7s. So good result there for Poland. 16th in the running order was Germany. This song, of course, fairly evenly split between jury support and public support. 15th place, 151 points. They got a couple of deuce points from Czechia and Ukraine. They got a public deuce point from winning Austria. Other than that, they picked up points here and there across Europe, but not really big totals. They had a lot of low numbers, especially in the televote, but they do add up, and that was able to get them up into 15th. Now, 17th in the running order, that was Greece. Greece coming in 6th in the contest, which I think might have been surprising to a lot of people because actually, if you looked at the odds going into the contest, they were more like 20th, more like 19th or 18th in the odds, and here they are coming in 6th. So this was kind of a miss by the bookies here, but the juries liked it. I would have thought they would get more jury points than they did. I would have thought they'd get more jury points than public points because this was a ballad. This was more jury bait than anything else. And they did get 4 deuce points from juries, and they did get some good results there. But they also got 3 deuce points from the public and more televote points than jury points. So Claudia did an amazing job. She deserved her placement, and I think she can be very proud of the points that she racked up here. Following her in 18th in the running order was Armenia. It came in 18th place with 72 points. I would have thought that this would have been a little more tilted towards the televote, but it was tilted towards the juries. Just another example of how the voting this year was just very, very strange. Songs that you thought would do well, but the juries did well in the televote instead. Songs you thought would do well in the televote did well with the juries. It was just kind of a mess everywhere. Malta actually gave them a jury 12 point, and Georgia gave them a public 12 point. Not really surprising that Georgia would give them a 12 point, but other than that, not really a whole lot to write home about in terms of point totals. Now here's quite the split screen. Number 19 in the running order was Switzerland, the host country, who I thought had a great host entry. We had them high up into our top 10 if you watched our recap video from last week. They came in second with the juries here, 214 points. So I think we were coming out of the jury segment thinking, oh my God, Switzerland could win again, because I think we were expecting them to put up a respectable televote, but that's what happened. Nothing. This is not an optical illusion. This isn't, we didn't forget to put the points up here. There aren't any. So really, really disappointed for Zoe, because I thought she deserved better than that. But the juries gave her plenty of recognition, so hopefully she's holding her head up high for coming in 10th place. Malta, another one. This was 20th in the running order. Another one that just, I don't get it. I would have thought these points over here on the jury side would be over here and they'd be swapped, more or less. Because I'm thinking to myself, there's no way a jury's going to give this song points. The Austrian jury actually gave this one 10 points. The Australian jury gave it 8. The German jury gave it 8. The Israeli jury gave it 8. I was shocked coming out of the jury vote. I'm like, Malta's doing really well in the juries. Like, are they going to finish surprisingly high in the final results? And the answer was no, because they only got 8 points out of the televote. Australia gave it 5 points. They got a couple ones, and that was it. They were actually one of the worst televote countries anywhere, which is surprising. The thing is, when you think about it, they did have to edit their song, and they did have to take out the word that perhaps people didn't want to hear. Well, some people wanted to hear it. The EBU most certainly did not. So maybe people out there in televote land just didn't get it. A lot of the casual viewers. The committed Euro fans who follow this stuff every day, like we do, we know what the word is. We know what the word sounds like on TV. And we know the word that they were shouting in the arena in Basel. But the people at home didn't hear it. So they're like, serving what? Serving a? So I'm going to just assume that this is a function of the televoters, the casual fans, just not getting what the song was about. It's very much a you had to be there sort of thing. 21st in the running order was Portugal. They came in 21st with 50 points. It was definitely a surprise to me that they got through, but you know, that Portuguese diaspora around the world was probably helpful to them in getting through in a televote-only semifinal. They could have used some televotes over here because they only got them from 2 countries. Luxembourg really liked this song, at least. But juries actually gave it some credit. The most points they got from any jury was the Netherlands with 7. And then 22nd in the running order was Sissel's Hallucination with Denmark. 45 jury points, kind of surprising. I would have thought that it would have been more of a televote song, but again, as we have already established, nothing really made a whole hell of a lot of sense at Eurovision this year. They got a couple of 10 points from juries, Georgia and the UK, but only poor Iceland gave them any points at all, so they spared Sissel from the basement in the televote. But again, as with Erica and Mariana, we still love you anyway. 23rd in the running order was Sweden, and this is a case of good but not good enough. They came in 6th in the jury vote, 126. They came in 3rd in the public vote, 195. 321 points for 4th place is really nothing to be ashamed of. But the expectation over the course of national final season and going into pre-party season was that Sweden might win this thing, and they didn't. And I think it became very clear during the jury votes that they weren't going to do that. They only got 1 deuce point from a jury That was Iceland. They got some 10s, but a lot of mid-range scores there, 6, 5, 4. So just really not good enough to get up into that high tier there. But the public really did appreciate what Kai did at Eurovision. They did get a couple of deuce points there. It looks like they got 4 of them. But again, it was a lot of mid-range scores for Sweden. They got a lot of points from a lot of countries, but lots of 6s, 5s, 4s, and 3s in there. So points, and they added up, but they just didn't add up to what I think perhaps they were expecting. And then France. This one actually made sense because you would have thought that France would be more of a jury-heavy song, and it was. They did get a number of deuce points from national juries, and they got some high figures in there, but then you go over to the public side. No deuce points, and they didn't get points from that many countries. It looks like 10 or 11 over there. So, yeah, this one went about the way I expected. We thought maybe if the votes really split between jury and televote that this one could come up the middle, but it just didn't get enough televotes to do that. And then second to last, 25 in the running order, was San Marino. They came in last in the contest, but 27 points. Like I said, if you're going to come in last, you don't want to come in last and get 0 points. And they didn't. 27 is actually pretty respectable for a last place country. Italy gave them 6 points, no surprise. And then the public of Italy gave them deuce point. So they got 18 of their 27 points from Italy. No surprise there at all. In fact, I would have not been shocked if it was even higher. But yeah, not a whole lot of points for San Marino, unfortunately. But then the song that went last was Albania, number 26. This was Albania's best result since 2012. They came in 8th place, got 218 points. I would have thought that this would have been a little bit more of a jury song than perhaps it was. They only came in 16th with the juries because this is a very artsy, conceptual kind of song, experimental kind of music. You would think that a jury would be like, ooh, this is a nice piece of music. This is a very interesting composition. So I would have expected to see maybe more jury points here. They did get a deuce point out of France, and they got 10 out of Montenegro, which, is a nearby country. But other than that, where they really cleaned up was with the public. They came in 5th in the televote. So, they said after the contest, we hope that we won people's hearts if you follow them on Instagram. And I think they did. You're coming in the top 5 in the televote. I think people really liked you, so you can see that a lot of points added up there for them. And now the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to take you through the votes of each country, both jury and public. We're going to show you how each country voted. There were 37. Starting with Albania, they gave their deuce point to France. They gave their televote deuce point to Greece. And then you can see Spain actually did very well with the Albanian jury, which is perhaps a bit of a surprise. Greece got 18 points out of Albania, so a good showing for them there. Armenia, you see how they voted. Their jury gave deuce point to France. They gave Finland 10 points, so thank you, Armenia. Your contributions are very well respected. As for the public in Armenia, they gave deuce point to Estonia. They ended up giving a total of 14 points to Estonia, but the big winners here were France because they came in with 10 points in the televote there. So Armenia gave France a total of 22 points in this contest. Australia, I'm not really surprised that they gave points to Greece here. They actually gave a total of 19 points to Greece between the jury and the televote. The jury gave it deuce point. They gave 10 points to Latvia, which I'm not sure a lot of people would have expected. But then they gave 8 points to Malta, 7 points to winning Austria, and then the public gave the deuce point to Israel, 10 points to Finland. Again, thank you very much, Australia. Winning Austria. Now, this was very interesting. The country that came in second in the jury vote was Switzerland. Do you see Switzerland over there? I don't. So they didn't give their main competitor any points. In fact, they didn't give their main competition any points at all on either side here. They gave their deuce point to Finland. Thank you very much. And then they gave their public deuce point to Germany, which actually makes a lot of sense because the singers for Germany are from Austria. So there you go. Azerbaijan, they gave the max contribution to Israel here, 24 points. They got deuce point in both jury and public. Italy came in with 10 points in the jury vote, and Ukraine rounded out the top three. On the public side, Austria actually did very well, and then Estonia came in with 8 points on the public side. Estonia got a total of 15 points out of Azerbaijan. Belgium gave their jury dues point to Austria. Estonia, very surprisingly, coming in with 10 points out of the juries, and then Switzerland in third. On the public side, it was Israel, Poland, and then France. Croatia gave its jury dues point to Italy. They gave their public dues point to Estonia. That one's not very much of a surprise. Austria and Switzerland rounded out the top three of the juries. Albania and Sweden rounded out the top three of the televote there in Croatia. In Cyprus, what a shock. They gave 24 points to Greece. The max contribution. The Cyprus to Greece connection is back. It is back in force. Deuce point on both sides of the board. Rounding out the top three in the jury were France and the Netherlands. And then rounding out the top three in the public were Israel and Ukraine. Czechia, they gave their deuce point from the jury to Germany. But then the UK did pretty well here, and then France rounding out the top three. On the public side, they gave their deuce point to Ukraine. But then Israel and Poland rounded out the top three. Sweden and Estonia getting a little further down to the top five. Denmark here, they gave their jury deuce point to Latvia. The top three also included Switzerland and Italy. Now, the public gave their deuce point here to Sweden. But then another Scandinavian country, this was their big haul here. 10 points for Iceland out of the public, and then Israel came in third. Moving on now to Estonia. Estonia gave their jury dues point to Switzerland, then had Finland and Sweden. So some Nordic countries up there, whereas on the public side, Sweden and Finland were first and second in the televote, with Latvia coming in third. Moving over to Finland now, they gave their jury dues point to Austria. They gave Sweden 10 points. They gave France 8 points. Whereas the public gave Sweden deuce point, they gave Israel 10, and they gave Estonia 8. Estonia got a total, looks like, of 12 points there, and Austria got a total of 19, but Sweden was the winner here. Out of Finland, they got 22. France really loved Albania's song. Albania got 22 points out of a possible 24 out of France. They got the jury's dues point. Armenia and Greece rounded out the top three in the juries. The public went with Israel, Albania, and Armenia. Armenia actually did really well out of France also. They got a total of 18 points out of the French. Georgia is next up. Now, their jury gave deuce point to Italy. And then they had Denmark and Latvia rounding out their top three, whereas the public gave Armenia deuce point, Ukraine, and Estonia rounded out the public's top three there. Germany, Austria got the deuce point out of the jury, then France and Malta, very surprisingly, getting 8 points out of the jury there. And then in the public segment, you've got Israel, Greece, and Albania in the top three. Austria, the winning country, got 18 points out of Germany. Greece, France got deuce point there, followed by Austria and the Netherlands. Then on the public side, Albania got the deuce point out of Greece, followed by Austria and Estonia. So you've got Austria getting 20 points out of Greece. Moving on now to Iceland. Sweden got the jury deuce point. Poland got the public deuce point. The jury top three rounded out by the Netherlands and Austria, where Sweden and Norway rounded out the televote top three out of Iceland. Moving on to Ireland. The jury top three were Austria, the Netherlands, and France. The public top three, Poland, actually came in first here, then Israel and Lithuania. Now, the neighboring country, the United Kingdom, you don't see them on the televote side there, but they did get 2 points out of the juries. Then we take a look here at Israel. Greece got 12 points out of the juries, followed by Germany and Malta. Ukraine got the public deuce point from Israel, followed then by Estonia and Austria. Austria, the winning country, looks like they got a total of 14 points here. But the big winner was Greece. They got 19. Moving on now to Italy. Italy gave their jury deuce point to the United Kingdom, followed by Estonia and Germany. San Marino, you might have thought it would do a little better. It got 6 points. But San Marino did very well with the public. San Marino, Gabri Ponte got deuce point from the public, followed by Albania and Israel. So San Marino, of course, got the vast majority of its points from Italy. Albania also got 13 points from Italy in total. Latvia now. Austria got 2 points, followed by Finland and Switzerland, whereas the public gave their 2 points to Estonia, followed by Lithuania and Sweden. So out of Latvia, on the public side, it was Estonia, Lithuania, and Sweden. Not terribly surprising that they would give their top points to their 2 neighboring countries. Estonia got a total of 13 points out of Latvia, whereas Lithuania got 17 points from their neighbors in Latvia. Now, speaking of Lithuania, well, they returned the favor to their friends in Latvia. They gave them the max contribution of 24 points, jury and public 2 points. Rounding out the jury top 3 were Italy and the Netherlands. Rounding out the public top 3 were Estonia and Germany. So Estonia getting a total of 17 points from Lithuania. Moving on now to Luxembourg. 2 points from the juries went to France, followed by Austria and Switzerland. On the public side, it was Israel, followed by Greece and Portugal. France here got a total of 18 points out of Luxembourg. Malta, maybe a little surprising. They would give their jury 2 points to Armenia, followed by Greece and France, whereas the public gave their 2 points to Estonia, followed by Austria and Italy. And you'll notice here, not really a lot of alignment between what the juries did and what the public did. You see Armenia on the jury side, they are not on the public side. You see Greece on the jury side, they are not on the public side. You see Estonia high up on the public side, they're pretty low on the jury side. Well, I mean, at least Austria is kind of a match there. Then down to Montenegro. Greece got the 2 points, followed by Albania and Austria. On the public side, Albania got the 2 points, followed by Estonia. Luxembourg got a total of 12 points from Montenegro. The winners here, however, were Albania. They got 22 points from their friends in Montenegro. Guess they're glad to see them back in the contest. The Netherlands is next. They gave their 2 points to Austria, followed by Switzerland and Sweden. Then on the public side, the Dutch public gave their points to Israel, followed by Poland and Estonia. So winning Austria, they got a total of 15 points there. The same with Sweden, between 8 and 7. But it looks like Israel was the winner here. They got 17 points. Norway, they gave their jury 2 points to Austria, followed by Sweden and Finland. The public gave their 2 points to Sweden, followed by Israel and Poland. So Sweden got 22 points out of neighboring Norway. Finland got 14, and winning Austria got 13. Down to Poland, they gave their jury 2 points to Switzerland, followed by the Netherlands and Italy. The public gave their 2 points to Ukraine, followed by Estonia and Sweden. In Portugal, they were pretty big fans of the Italian song. They gave 2 points from the jury, followed by Switzerland and Ukraine. The public gave their 2 points to Israel, followed by Ukraine and Italy. Portugal gave a total of 20 points to the Italian entry here. But they also gave 18 points total to Ukraine. San Marino, not really a surprise that Italy would do well here. Italy got the jury's 2 points, followed by Switzerland and Latvia, whereas the public gave the 2 points to Greece, followed by Israel and Albania. So Italy, the country that completely surrounds San Marino, they got a total of 15 points here. Serbia, who of course unfortunately did not make the grand final, their jury 2 points went to France, followed by Germany and Austria, whereas the public gave the 2 points to Estonia, followed by Austria and Greece. So winning Austria did very well here, getting a total of 18 points, but Germany got 15 out of Serbia as well. And then you have Greece getting a total of 14. Slovenia, another country that didn't make it through to the final, their jury 2 points went to Italy, followed by Austria and Switzerland. But then look at the public side, another max contribution here. Italy got the 2 points, followed by Austria and Albania. So Italy got 24 points out of Slovenia. Austria got 20. Moving on now down to Spain, the jury went with Switzerland, followed by the Netherlands and France, whereas the public went with Israel, Ukraine, and Poland. Moving on now to Sweden, they gave their jury deux points to Austria, followed by Switzerland and the Netherlands. The public gave their deux points to Israel, followed by Finland and Estonia. Switzerland, the host country, gave their deux points to neighboring Italy out of the jury, followed by Sweden and France. The public gave the deux points to Israel, followed by Albania and Italy. So Italy got 20 points out of the host country, Switzerland. Almost to the end now, we were at Ukraine. They gave their jury deux points to Germany, followed by the United Kingdom and Italy. And then on the public side, surprising, they gave their deux points to Lithuania, followed by Norway and Latvia. So a really weird jury and televote compared to what other countries were generally doing. But there you go. And finally, we made it to the end, the United Kingdom. They gave their deux points to Latvia, followed by Denmark and Austria, whereas the public gave their deux points to Israel, followed by Poland and Lithuania. Lithuania getting 14 points out of the United Kingdom. And I've heard some British Euro fans say that the Lithuanian song was actually perhaps the kind of song that could work for them at Eurovision, and maybe there's something to that because the British seem to like it. And then we didn't do a graphic for the rest of the world vote, but they gave their deux points to Israel. They actually gave 10 points to Albania, so a pretty good haul for them there. And then with 8 points was Ukraine. Rounding out the top 5 were Greece and Sweden. So that's it. That was a lot of numbers. A lot of numbers. I don't blame you if you skipped ahead, you jumped chapters, whatever. There's a lot of data here. We had a lot to talk about, but those were the detailed results of the grand final. So here we are, and we're now in the Eurovision off season. But the way things are going lately, I don't think it's going to be much of an off season. I think we're going to be pretty busy throughout. And you can follow us on Blue Sky at theEuroYard.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and visit theEuroYard.com.